Hi guys, I'm Subrati and this is scene creating number 2. And the prompt for this video is make a burger while your crush keeps distracting you. So in this video I didn't write just one scene. Rather the prompt seemed so unique to me that I got carried away and wrote a short film out of it. So without further talky, let's start righty, the first act. After watching this prompt, the first idea that popped into my head was a teenage rom-com. You know, the nerd and the hot chick type. But after giving this idea some thought, I tossed it in the trash. That's because at 2020, it's a played out cliche, and at best, something like that could become a cheap comedy scene.
That's not funny.
And my second idea was set in an office. The plot was something like this: a boy likes a girl. They are both co workers, and during lunchtime, the boy makes a burger for the girl. And before you say anything, yes, burgers are considered as sandwiches.
That makes sense to me.
So I started writing this guy Firdos, who hates his job, and the girl is Promita, who is just Promita for now. Firdos is classmate from the college days, who also happens to be his co-worker. I wrote some rubbish till here and I stopped to think about the location for the second act. At first I thought about keeping things inside the office, but eventually decided to go with Promita's kitchen during lunchtime. Here Firdos is a very good cook, whereas Promita is a liability inside the kitchen. Now, when I started this scene, I didn't know much about the characters and I blatantly started writing. That resulted in something very rough and harsh. So I stopped, and instead of thinking about the plot and where the narrative needs to go, I started thinking about the characters. On one hand, we have Firdos, an introvert who is struggling financially but is a damn good cook. And on the other hand, we have Promita, an extrovert who was popular back in college and is horrible at cooking. Now, to further show the differences between Firdos and Promita, I made Promita financially sound by giving her a wealthy father. And to reflect these character traits, I changed this portion of Firdos' voiceover, shortened Promita's description from Firdos' voiceover, added a little bit of background to Promita and Firdos' characters, changed it from after lunch to after 5, and added a little bit of flair to the scene to keep things on the steady side. And from there, I started the second act. With the second act, I started with Promita's apartment instead of her kitchen, to show how wealthy she is and to introduce why she brought Firdos here. She has found a recipe for a burger from the colonial era and she wants Firdos to make it.
That makes sense to me.
Cut to Promita's kitchen. This is the scene where Promita starts disturbing Firdos, which further shows their differences and actually help to introduce the central conflict between the two characters. So this conversation is mainly there to show the kind of relationship Promita and Firdos had in the past, revealing a truth about their relationship, that in college Promita hardly acknowledged Firdos, or at least in front of their peers. And hearing it from Firdos makes Promita feel guilty, which draws the conversation to a different tangent. Now, I wanted to have the main collision between the two characters right here. I had an idea where they would have that big fight and Firdos would leave halfway through the cooking. Promita will try to finish the burger and present her rendition as a note of apology or something. However, while writing the script, it didn't happen like that. I kind of forgot about it.
Well, Danny kind of forgot about.
So instead, Firdos keeps on with the burger and Promita goes to help him where her lack of culinary skills are quite evident. And now, with the burger done, we move on to interior, Promita's dining room. At first, I wrote this scene in such a way that Firdos would make one burger for Promita, which would lead to their central argument. But that was coming off as if Firdos was intentionally digging up old dirt. Instead, I gave him a burger so that he can sit down and chill. And while chilling, Promita would bring up that he should quit his job and start his restaurant. This is from where the drama begins. At first, the tangent of this conversation was going towards Firdos and Promita's financial difference, which in the long run was not going to be useful for me. Instead, I extruded the conversation towards their college days, because that's where a lot of sentimental stuff is present. This conversation sort of festers to the point where Promita manages to get herself offended by Firdos' words and starts bashing him with her own. And it reaches its peak here. And now, Firdos erupts, which of course ends with Firdos walking out of Promita's house. Now for the next part, I wanted to do a split screen montage. Problem is, I don't know how to write one, and after searching the internet, I found nothing. Most of the solutions were either too cluttered or simply impossible to adapt on the software I was using. Instead, I went with something like this. First, I showed the locations individually. Then I started the montage with the scene heading as Split Screen Begins. Then on the left, I kept Firdoz's scenes, and on the right one, I kept Promita's. This juxtaposes their current situation and emotional conditions. And with the end of this scene, we fade into Act 3. So this scene begins exactly as Act 1. I actually copied the action from the first scene. The same scolding from the boss, and then Firdoz notices Promita. She looks exactly the same as yesterday, only today she looks depressed. She comes to talk to Firdoz and to give him a tiffin box. And despite not many words said, Firdoz notices her wounds. Inside the tiffin box, there is a burger, smaller in size, implying that Promita made it for him. All these implies that Promita, despite being a terrible cook, tried to make a burger by herself. Her character overcame a flaw and takes her character arc from someone who is completely dependent on others to someone who is trying to take care of herself. And the smile on Firdoz sort of tells the audience that Promita's change is going to impact him as well. And now the last scene. Interior, canteen, afternoon. This scene is a sort of closure to Firdoz and Promita's arc as well as their relationship. Promita strives to become an independent woman who can take care of herself, and Firdoz quits his job in order to pursue his dreams. And through this journey of burger making, the two characters evolved and maybe even found themselves. The rest I leave up to your imagination. And that's the script. A simple story of two classmates becoming friends over a burger. A burger story. Thanks for watching this video till the end. Like it if you did, do the other if you didn't. Share, subscribe, and if you have any prompt on which I can create a scene on, then do let me know in the comments. And with that, I'll see you guys next time.